Imagine a city shimmering with gold, hidden deep within the dense jungles of the Congo. But is it real or just a myth? A land where ancient ruins whisper through the jungle leaves, where forgotten creatures may still roam, and where one discovery changed everything. Welcome to the hidden world of the Congo. Let's begin. The stone temple beneath the canopy. Our tale begins not in ancient times, but in the early 2000s, when a Congolese botanist, Dr. Emile Kamba, ventured into a remote part of the rainforest near the Ituri region. He was not a treasure hunter, nor an adventurer. His mission was ecological, to study rare orchids. But what he and his small team stumbled upon would ignite decades of hushed speculation. According to his personal journals, which were later shared anonymously through a European ethnobotanical society, Dr. Kamba and his team found an unnatural clearing. The area was suspiciously symmetrical, and unlike typical forest clearings caused by lightning, tree falls, or tribal activity, this one seemed designed. At its center lay a flat platform of stone, not the raw kind scattered naturally across the earth, but smooth, cold, and meticulously arranged into an octagonal pattern. The team stayed just long enough to record rough GPS coordinates and take photographs, photos that have never officially surfaced. Rumors claim the camera was lost during their return, swept away by flooding near the Epulu River. But what truly unsettled them wasn't just the platform. It was what they saw etched into the stones. Symbols, glyphs, circular motifs, worn by age but unmistakably artificial. The kind of carvings that speak not to randomness but to language, perhaps even ritual. They left the site within hours. Not because they lacked curiosity, but because, as the journals cryptically say, something was wrong with the air. It's a strange thing to describe, the air feeling wrong, but it's a recurring motif in the legends of the Congo. Tribes speak of places where the forest watches you, places you are not meant to stand, where sound feels heavy and the animals go silent. Dr. Kamba's writings describe a sudden drop in wind, an unnatural stillness, equipment failure, and a deep sense of dread that came over the group. As if the vines themselves were holding their breath, he would never return to the site. When asked in later interviews, he refused to discuss the event, dismissing it as an overactive imagination. But others in his team reportedly left research work altogether and vanished into private life. And so, the mystery lay dormant, a strange story in a private academic journal, tucked away in dusty archives. That is, until 2011. The drone footage that wasn't supposed to exist. In the summer of 2011, a Belgian wildlife filmmaker named Lucas van der Merwe was tracking bonobos in the same region. His crew had recently begun experimenting with early drone technology, primitive by today's standards but still effective for aerial sweeps. While reviewing footage days later, something strange appeared. A break in the forest canopy, revealing a sharply geometric outline. The footage was only a few seconds long before the drone lost signal. Again, the jungle had a way of swallowing electronics whole. Lucas later told a French podcast that what he saw in the frames looked like the roof of a ziggurat, a stair-step temple, too perfectly aligned to be natural. He showed the footage to a colleague at a European university who advised him never to publish it. Not because of danger, but because it would ignite chaos in the archaeological community without real context. The footage has never been released publicly, but it rekindled an old whisper among those who study forbidden architecture, the idea that deep in the Congo lies a temple not just unknown to modern science, but possibly older than civilization itself. Legends of the Bakongo. Long before drones or scientists entered the picture, the Bakongo people, one of the oldest cultures in the region, spoke of a sacred site known only in oral tradition as Nzinga Yinsik, roughly translating to the pillar that should not be seen. According to elder accounts recorded by anthropologists in the 1970s, this pillar was not a column, but an entire structure buried by the jungle, cursed by the ancestors, and guarded by spirits who walk only by moonlight. It was said to hum at night, a low, barely audible vibration that made the earth feel alive. Some legends claimed the structure was not made for humans, but for something before humans. A forgotten force from the first world, long before the sky changed and the rivers ran backward, mythic language that blurs the line between cosmology and history. But even among tribal circles, this story was not widely shared. It was only spoken of during special rites, and only among the old. A quiet thread in the rich, veiled tapestry of Congo's cultural memory. So, is it possible? Could such a temple exist? Unknown to the world, swallowed by vines, and protected not just by terrain, but by silence? Geological anomalies and satellite ghosts. One curious note came from NASA's SRTM, Shuttle Radar Topography Mission, data, a 2003 survey that used radar to map Earth's terrain, including remote regions of Africa. Buried deep in the raw elevation data, a small section of the Ituri rainforest revealed a near-perfect octagonal formation, spanning approximately 90 meters across. At first, it was assumed to be a glitch in the data, but later reanalysis showed it wasn't a digital artifact. The formation had genuine altitude variance and straight edges, unusual for untouched jungle. Of course, satellite data is notoriously difficult to interpret when the jungle canopy is thick, and even less so when cloud cover, humidity, and geomagnetic anomalies distort readings. But for a few researchers quietly tracking the story for years, it was enough. Expeditions were planned. None returned with clear answers. One group of amateur explorers from Kinshasa claimed to reach the area in 2015, only to be met with geological instability, sudden sinkholes, bizarre compass activity, and the inability to fix GPS signals for more than 30 seconds at a time. Their footage was blurry, unusable, and yet they all returned convinced. Something was there, something old, something built. Why no one talks about it? It may seem strange that a potential megalithic structure in the world's second-largest rainforest has never reached headlines. But the truth is, the Congo keeps its secrets well. Dense, remote, politically unstable, and home to thousands of miles of unmapped wilderness. It is the perfect vault for forgotten history. Add to that a lack of funding for deep archaeological work and the presence of armed groups in remote regions, and you begin to understand why the jungle has no tour guides. But more than that, there's a quiet reverence around these kinds of stories. The people who live closest to the mystery do not seek to exploit it. Many believe it is not meant to be found. Next, the Congo stone serpent, guardian of a forgotten civilization. Hidden beneath a velvet canopy of endless green, where sunlight filters like liquid gold through tangled branches, lies a mystery carved in silence and stone. In the heart of the northern Congolese rainforest, miles away from any beaten path or modern mapping, an enormous stone serpent coils in eternal stillness, half consumed by roots and time. It is not simply a natural rock formation, as some have claimed in hasty dismissal. It is unmistakably deliberate, a sculpture of immense precision, scale, and purpose. But who carved it? Why is there no record of such craftsmanship? And what civilization, now erased from history, saw the serpent as their eternal sentinel? The first whispers of the Congo stone serpent emerged from local tribes whose ancestors warned never to tread near its resting ground. To them, the stone guardian was sacred, not merely symbolic, but a protector of something ancient, buried, and dangerous. They speak of dreams disturbed when one camps too close, of animals that avoid the sight completely, of a stillness that feels not peaceful, but watchful. When a French-Congolese expedition team stumbled upon the formation in the early 1970s, they were astounded by what they saw. A stone serpent stretching nearly 50 meters long, its body detailed with intricate geometric carvings, and its head turned slightly as if in eternal vigilance toward a now-vanished structure of crumbled stone nearby. What began as a minor archaeological curiosity soon spiraled into a web of mystery, folklore, and scientific confusion. Geological tests showed the stone to be at least 12,000 years old, predating not just known settlements in the area, but even the generally accepted rise of civilization in that part of Africa. The surface of the serpent is rough, yet symmetrical. Scales, each the size of a man's palm, are etched into the stone with a precision that implies not only great artistry, but a deeper symbolic knowledge. Along the back of the sculpture, cryptic patterns repeat: spirals, intersecting triangles, and something resembling a solar disk nested within the serpent's coils. To local elders, these marks aren't decoration. They're warnings, a language of protection, a map, perhaps, or a code meant only for those who remember a time before memory. And yet, no one remembers. What perplexed the archaeologists further was the absence of supporting structures nearby. In most ancient sites, ruins of homes, tools, or communal spaces remain. Here, nothing. No shards, no pottery. Just thick jungle, bird calls, and the endless silence broken only by the wind brushing across stone scales. It's as if the serpent alone survived, deliberately placed at the edge of forgetting, guarding something too immense or dangerous to be rediscovered. In 1972, geologist Bernard Lissow led a team to investigate the formation's origins. Core samples taken from the serpent's base revealed unusual anomalies. Traces of rare minerals, including palladium and iridium, were found in unnatural concentrations, elements often associated with meteor impacts or high-temperature industrial processes. Yet, no such processes should have been known to any civilization from 12,000 years ago. Even stranger was the magnetic field surrounding the sculpture. When compasses were brought near, their needles spun or drifted toward the serpent's head. The closer the instruments got, the more unreliable they became. Several members of the team reported nausea, dizziness, and, peculiarly, intense, vivid dreams during their stay. Dreams of tunnels deep beneath the earth, of a language whispered in tones too low to decipher, of eyes watching from beneath the stone. Lissow, shaken and disillusioned, abruptly ended the expedition after only 6 days. His journals, later found among private archives, contained a chilling entry. "I believe we have stumbled upon something far older than mankind as we know it. This serpent was not made to be worshipped. It was made to warn, or contain, local lore and the forbidden story." The nearby Mbenga tribes have long told tales of a stone creature that came alive in the time before the first rains. A time when the land was flat, the stars hung low, and humans still spoke with animals. In their version of the story, the serpent was once a being of immense power, slithering through the forests before the trees grew tall. It ruled not through tyranny, but through knowing. When men arrived and began disturbing the earth, digging and building, the serpent warned them to stop. They didn't, so the earth shook, rivers rose, and the great snake turned itself to stone, sacrificing its form to hold back a darkness rising from deep beneath the ground. To many, this sounds like nothing more than folklore, an echo of myth shaped by time. But myths often carry truths that evade the language of science. Stories passed down through song and symbol, not because they're fantasy, but because they are all that remains of something too enormous to record. The discovery of the subterranean shaft. In 1994, nearly 2 decades after Lissow's expedition, a private group of researchers returned with new equipment. This time, they brought ground-penetrating radar, hoping to map beneath the serpent. What they found astonished them. Beneath the stone's head was an unnatural shaft, cylindrical, smooth-walled, and perfectly vertical, descending at least 200 feet into the bedrock. Attempts to enter the shaft failed. The opening was sealed shut, overgrown and calcified. But the radar readings revealed voids below. Chambers? Caves? The data was inconclusive, marred by interference and strange distortions. Still, they left convinced. The serpent wasn't just sculpture. It was a marker, a capstone, possibly the only remaining clue to a vast underground complex. But just days after their initial findings were leaked, the team disbanded. Reports of disputes, nervous breakdowns, and financial withdrawal from anonymous donors swirled in whispered academic circles. Some claimed government intervention, others blamed fear, but no one has since dared return. Was the serpent ever alive? Among the stranger theories that emerged from fringe researchers was the idea that the serpent wasn't simply carved, it was once organic. A creature petrified by an unknown process. Ancient texts from neighboring regions in Central Africa make mention of living stones, beings that turned themselves to rock to escape destruction or to wait until they were needed again. Could the serpent be one of these? A biological entity, preserved in time, fused with mineral? While mainstream science scoffs at such ideas, the unnaturally detailed anatomy of the serpent has sparked a quiet debate. Its jaw is articulated. Its eye sockets have depth. The tail ends in a spiral that, when measured, follows the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern found in both nature and architecture. Coincidence? Or a message? Today, the Congo stone serpent lies undisturbed, overgrown, unmarked on most maps. Satellite images of the area are strangely grainy, obscured by cloud cover or labeled with forest codes. Officially, there is no site of archaeological significance in the region. No serpent, no shaft, nothing to explain the dreams that still trouble those who once walked its perimeter. A few independent researchers have tried to revisit the site. Most report becoming lost, even with GPS assistance. One group returned after 3 days, exhausted, disoriented, claiming the jungle rearranged itself. Whether hallucination, fear, or something else, they abandoned their equipment and refused to speak of what they saw. Next, the forest of vanishing shadows, or a place time forgot. Deep within the Republic of Congo, far beyond the reach of maps and deeper still than any modern exploration has dared to go, lies a woodland that locals speak of only in hushed tones, if they speak of it at all. They call it Ngogo, the forest of vanishing shadows. It is a place avoided by nomads, whispered about by tribes, and barely acknowledged by those who live at its borders. Those who enter rarely return, and if they do, they are never quite the same. What makes this forest so feared, so hauntingly mysterious, is not just the disorientation that comes from thick jungle or the natural dangers of the terrain. It's the phenomena, the sense that time folds in on itself, the unsettling truth that shadows vanish, literally, beneath the trees. A man walking through may find that his shadow disappears, as if light no longer obeys the rules of physics. Watches stop working, compasses spin erratically, and worst of all, sounds seem to echo not from the present, but from somewhere far behind or far ahead. The deeper one journeys into Ngogo, the more the laws of reality begin to fray. It starts with the light. The canopy above is dense, of course, almost impenetrable, but something stranger occurs. Where dappled rays of sunshine should streak across the forest floor, there's nothing. Shadows flicker and fade, even when there's clear evidence of light. A bird flying overhead may cast a momentary blur, but as soon as it moves, no trace remains. Even your own shadow, the constant, silent companion you've had since birth, begins to slip away, first flickering, then dimming, and then gone. Explorers have reported standing in open forest glades with no shade above, yet no shadows forming beneath their feet. This strange optical vanishing has drawn the attention of physicists and light theorists, who've postulated everything from localized electromagnetic anomalies to gravitational warping. Yet the few instruments that have made it into the forest, infrared sensors, UV cameras, light sensors, often return unusable data. Or worse, they simply malfunction altogether. Those who go in with technology find it slowly becoming unreliable. Digital watches stop. Old-fashioned compasses begin to spin. GPS devices drop their signal entirely or return coordinates that make no sense, placing them deep underwater in remote parts of the world or in blank white zones as if they've left the map entirely. But the most disturbing stories come from those who came out. Echoes from the forest, lost time and faded memories. In 1999, a team of 5 Congolese researchers and 2 Belgian naturalists entered the outer edge of Ngogo on a botanical survey, tasked with cataloging rare orchids and assessing potential threats from illegal logging. They followed a known tribal path documented carefully and had satellite positioning active. According to the record, they entered the forest at 9:08 a.m. on July 17th. They emerged 12 days later, filthy, barefoot, and shaken. They believed they had only been gone 2 days. Their equipment was heavily degraded, clothing frayed, food supplies untouched. Yet when questioned, none of them remembered eating. 3 of the team members were unable to recall anything past the 3rd hour of the hike. The rest gave conflicting reports. Strange humming, a sudden drop in temperature, the feeling of being watched by something enormous, and the sound of voices speaking in languages no one recognized. One of the naturalists claimed to have seen a temple made of black stone, half swallowed by tree roots, sitting perfectly still in a sunlit clearing, though his companion saw nothing but trees. When he tried to photograph it, his camera failed. When they checked the footage later, it only showed white light followed by static. What makes this account even stranger is the cellular decay noticed in their hair and nails. Upon medical analysis, their bodies had undergone changes consistent with weeks of deprivation, not just days. Yet there was no sign of starvation or dehydration, only time out of place. Ancient warnings in bark and stone. Local Bantu elders have passed down stories of the forest for generations. They warn children not to speak the name Nzokolya too loudly at night. Some say it's a spirit realm, a place where ancestors pass through, but not the living. A rare stone tablet found on the outskirts of the region in 1978 may support these claims. Discovered by a French anthropologist near the Ubangi River basin, the tablet was etched with a swirling pattern of concentric rings, surrounding an eye-like glyph. Radiocarbon dating placed it at roughly 2,200 years old. But what caught the researchers' attention was the inscription. It spoke of a forest where the sun becomes a liar, and a path walked forward that leads back to the beginning. Another line mentioned something chilling. In the heart of the green veil, time sleeps in coils. The tablet was lost in transit back to Kinshasa in 1980. Officially, it was labeled as destroyed in shipment. Some whisper it was taken by intelligence services or private collectors who feared what the public might learn if the inscriptions were made widely known. Creatures without footprints. Among the few explorers who return, many speak of strange animals, but not in the way you might expect. There are no clear sightings of jungle cats or elephants, though those species roam the Congo basin. Instead, witnesses report something altogether different. The feeling of something nearby. The sound of heavy footsteps with no visible creature. The rustle of trees parting for something much larger than any known animal. In 2016, an anonymous footage leak claimed to show a massive, semi-transparent figure moving silently between trees at twilight. It stood upright, unnaturally tall, and emitted a low, rhythmic hum that caused the camera to vibrate slightly. Experts who analyzed the video could not authenticate it, but also could not disprove its legitimacy. In the weeks following its release, the original uploader vanished, and the video was removed from all major platforms. Locals believe that in the heart of Nzokolya lives a forest guardian, a being of pure shadow or pure light, depending on the mood of the forest. Some say it watches, some say it judges, some say it protects whatever ancient truth the forest is hiding. A rift in reality? Is Nzokolya just an uncharted forest in the heart of the Congo? Or is it something more, a natural anomaly where physics breaks down and time folds in on itself? Some geologists have speculated the region may sit on a gravitational fault line or even a localized magnetic rift, a phenomenon not yet understood, but capable of bending light and altering perception. Others wonder if the forest is a remnant of something older, a prehistoric structure buried beneath millennia of growth, now bleeding into the modern world in unexpected ways. There are those who suggest the forest is alive in ways we don't understand, that its trees are not just living but listening, that its roots stretch not only through earth but through time. Whatever the truth, the forest of vanishing shadows remains one of the least explored, most whispered about regions on Earth. Perhaps it is a natural illusion, a trick of light, temperature, and human psychology. Or perhaps it is a portal, a forgotten doorway between this world and another, nestled in the beating heart of the Congo. And for those brave or foolish enough to enter, they may find that the deeper they go, the less they remember who they were when they started. The forest doesn't just swallow shadows. Next, the metallic monoliths of Bondo, echoes of a forgotten civilization. Hidden in the northeastern reaches of the Congo basin, near the scarcely populated town of Bondo, lie strange metallic structures, standing stones that seem wholly out of place in the surrounding jungle. These towering monoliths, some over 15 feet tall, are unlike anything found elsewhere in Central Africa. They are not made of stone, but of a strange metallic alloy that resists corrosion, echoing softly when tapped, as if the sound reverberates through empty chambers within. They were first stumbled upon by French colonial explorers in the 1890s, though their discovery was not taken seriously at the time. A single journal entry, long forgotten, described them as metal idols forged by some vanished race, accompanied by vague warnings from nearby tribes to leave the forest spirits untouched. In the years since, these monoliths have been rediscovered multiple times by researchers, adventurers, and even smugglers, but every attempt to extract or study them has met with strange resistance. Mechanical failures, vanished data, or worse, entire teams going missing. But the mystery doesn't stop at the monoliths themselves. In the heart of one of the most impenetrable jungles on Earth, where the air hangs thick with moisture and ancient trees form a cathedral canopy above, lies a clearing that few have seen and fewer still can explain. The locals call it Nsaka wa Maza, the place of the silent watchers. Deep within this clearing, surrounded by unbroken walls of green, stand a series of metallic monoliths. Tall, sleek, and humming faintly in the heat, they rise from the earth like sentinels left behind by a forgotten world. What makes them extraordinary is not just their presence, but their composition and symmetry. Each monolith stands vertically aligned, forged from a dark, matte metal that reflects neither light nor heat. When tested by a French exploratory team in the 1950s, samples indicated a non-terrestrial composition, an alloy similar to titanium but containing trace elements not known to Earth's periodic table at the time. But the Congo does not give up its secrets easily, and the forest, it seems, is determined to protect whatever story the monoliths are meant to tell. A discovery lost to time. The first recorded mention of the metallic monoliths came from Lieutenant Etienne Dumont, a French officer stationed in the Upper Welle region during the tail end of the 19th century. In a letter to his superiors dated 1891, he described stumbling upon a geometrical grove where the trees gave way to towers of cold iron, too heavy for native tools to shape and too smooth for time to corrode. The letter never reached Paris. Decades later, when historians were digitizing colonial records, Dumont's letter was discovered tucked away among unrelated paperwork. Intrigued, a small Belgian team set out in 1953 to follow the coordinates Dumont scribbled in the margins. They never returned. All that remained was a single journal, dropped in the mud along a jungle trail. The pages, smudged by rain and mildew, spoke of electrical anomalies, of compasses spinning wildly, and of the metallic towers emitting a soft frequency. Too low to hear, but powerful enough to register on analog equipment. The final entry read, "The forest won't let us leave. Every path leads back to them. The monoliths are watching. Strange properties and stranger effects. Those few who have reached the site and lived to tell the tale speak of the monoliths as though they are alive." Modern satellite surveys attempted to identify the location in the early 2000s, but inexplicably, all imaging of that specific patch came back corrupted or blank. Weather balloons flown over the region failed to transmit telemetry as they crossed into the clearing. Drone flights have either crashed or vanished mid-transmission. It's as if the air above the monoliths is thick with interference, something bending signals and warping electromagnetic fields. In 2012, a Congolese anthropologist named Dr. Mbaka Tembo led an unofficial team into the forest after a local elder, on his deathbed, described a metal village where the stars whispered. Dr. Tembo recorded multiple anomalies during their expedition, sudden drops in temperature within 100 feet of the monoliths, disruption of digital watches and phones, feelings of intense déjà vu reported by the entire team, even though none had visited the area before. One researcher blacked out completely and claimed to awaken several hours later next to a monolith, unable to remember how he got there. Perhaps most alarming were the sounds. Though inaudible to the ear, Tembo's parabolic microphones captured deep, rhythmic pulses emanating from the monoliths, regular, patterned, almost mechanical. Sound engineers later analyzed the audio and found a repeating prime number sequence buried in the low frequencies. To this day, no one has been able to explain how or why a metallic object, buried deep in one of the most remote forests in the world, would be broadcasting mathematically intelligent signals. Local legends and cautionary tales. Among the tribes of the Bondo region, tales of the monolith stretch back hundreds, perhaps thousands, of years. The Zonda and Mangbetu people speak of a time before the trees, before the animals, before man himself, when the sky suns descended and planted their towers as beacons to the heavens. They were not gods, they say, but something far more dangerous. Observers, judges. In these oral histories, the monoliths are always present, unchanging, eternal. Some refer to them as Zil wa Moto, the cold giants. Others refuse to speak of them at all, fearful that even their name holds power. Elders warn their grandchildren to stay away from the deep forest, for it is not only filled with beasts, but with machines that dream. What's perhaps most eerie is the uniformity of these legends across tribes separated by distance, dialect, and sometimes centuries of isolation. How is it that multiple, distinct groups all describe the same monoliths, the same hum, the same fear? A connection to other monolith mysteries? As word of the Bondo monoliths has slowly seeped out into the wider world, comparisons have been drawn to other enigmatic structures across the globe. The Al Nasla Rock in Saudi Arabia, perfectly split by an unknown force. The Yanaguni Monument off the coast of Japan. The Iron Pillar of Delhi, which has withstood rust and decay for over 1,600 years. Could these structures share a common origin or purpose? Some theorists point to the idea of ancient advanced civilizations, far older than Mesopotamia or Egypt, capable of manipulating materials and energies lost to modern science. Others propose an even more speculative theory: extraterrestrial engineering, with monoliths serving as anchor points, data hubs, or even sentinels watching the evolution of intelligent life on Earth. What raises eyebrows is the placement of the Bondo monoliths. When plotted with other global sites of unexplained phenomena, they form an arc across the equator, intersecting the Nazca Lines, Lake Victoria, and even extending toward the enigmatic structures on Easter Island. Coincidence? Or something more intentional? Attempts at study and their consequences. Over the years, multiple independent groups, scientists, adventurers, treasure hunters, have attempted to study the monoliths in greater detail. But none have been able to remove a sample. Cutting tools fail. Lasers dissipate. The metal remains cold and unmarred, as if it exists slightly out of phase with the physical world. One documentary team from South Africa managed to film several hours of footage near the monoliths in 2017. Their lead cameraman, after returning to Johannesburg, abruptly left the project, citing recurring nightmares of standing in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by humming towers that whispered in code. He burned the tapes, literally set fire to the digital hard drives. Even backups retrieved from cloud storage showed only static where the monolith footage had once existed. A phenomenon beyond science. What remains today are rumors, legends, and fragments of data. The monoliths of Bondo stand in defiance of time, technology, and explanation. If they were constructed by human hands, it would upend everything we know about metallurgy, history, and migration in sub-Saharan Africa. If they were built by something else, then the implications are far more unsettling. What message do they carry, locked in vibrations too low for us to hear? What secrets lie beneath their roots, buried under layers of jungle and myth? And why, despite our best efforts, does the forest fight to keep them hidden? Next, the whispering caverns of Ngogo echoes from beneath the earth. There is a place in the eastern highlands of the Congo basin where the ground seems to breathe. Nestled deep within the heart of the Ngogo highlands, beyond tangled canopies and mist-wrapped ridges, lies a complex network of caverns that few outsiders have ever dared to enter. The local Benyoro people call them Kiwala Kia Maiso, the caves that speak without tongues. Inside these dark, yawning passages, strange whispers are said to drift from the stone itself. Whispers that continue even when no one speaks and no wind stirs. To the untrained ear, it may sound like trickling water. But for those who have entered the caverns and stood still in total silence, they describe something very different. An intelligent murmuring, as though a forgotten language is being spoken just out of reach. For centuries, local tribes have believed that the caves are sacred and cursed. They say they are the burial chambers of spirits too dangerous to name, and that to disturb their peace is to awaken something ancient. And yet, it seems someone or something has been inside them long before modern explorers ever arrived. a network older than time. The Ngogo Caverns are vast, an underground labyrinth carved through limestone and obsidian, stretching for miles beneath the hills. But it's not their size that baffles geologists. It's their symmetry. In 2003, a joint Congolese-German expedition used ground-penetrating radar to map the system. What they found were near-perfect geometric corridors, passages that intersect at clean 90-degree angles, spiraling chambers in golden ratios, and vaulted ceilings that rise and fall in rhythmic proportions. Such precision is not common in natural formations. Not without assistance. Not without design. One of the lead geologists on the team, Dr. Albrecht Kohl, published a paper shortly before his sudden disappearance, stating, "The caves seem to have been guided, shaped by something with a higher understanding of geometry, acoustics, and light. But they predate any known civilization in this part of Africa. If they were carved, then they were carved by something we have not yet accounted for." Cole was last seen boarding a small plane to return to Kinshasa. The plane never arrived. No wreckage was ever found. The whispers themselves. The most infamous trait of the Ngogo Caverns is the sound. Visitors to the site, whether trained researchers or brave locals, almost unanimously report hearing persistent, word-like murmurs in the deepest chambers. These whispers are not hallucinations or echoes of their own voices. They continue even in total silence, even when standing completely still. Some have attempted to record the phenomena. In 2017, a Congolese field linguist named Joseph Kalamba lowered a sensitive parabolic microphone into one of the inner caverns, sealing the equipment in a vibration-dampening container. What the recorder captured is now stored in an encrypted archive by the University of Lubumbashi, but Kalamba released a brief excerpt to the public. The audio features a repeating pattern of rhythmic syllables, none of which match any known language, but all of which follow syntactic rules. Pauses, inflections, sentence-like structure. Acoustic analysts say the whispers exist at an odd subharmonic frequency, detectable only through certain materials. In layman's terms, the caves are speaking in a language we're not equipped to hear, and yet, many who visit claim to understand it, not intellectually, but emotionally. An encounter buried in time. One of the oldest surviving accounts comes not from modern scientists, but from a handwritten letter discovered in a Portuguese monastery in the 18th century. The letter, written by a Jesuit missionary in 1649, details a harrowing encounter with dark vaults beneath the jungle, where invisible choirs sang in voices of men and beasts alike. The missionary claimed he was guided there by locals as a test of his faith. He spoke of seeing walls that shimmered like obsidian mirrors, and floors that pulsed faintly with warmth, as though the earth itself held a heartbeat. He wrote, "The voices spoke not in Latin, nor in any tongue I knew, and yet they reached into my mind like water soaking into cloth. I emerged from the cavern changed, as though my thoughts were not entirely mine anymore." The letter was never sent. In 2021, a camera trap placed by a Belgian-Congolese team captured 3 frames of a bipedal figure with no visible eyes and skin like wet stone. The footage was pulled offline within hours and replaced with a statement citing equipment malfunction. But even among skeptics, the unease lingers. What lives within the deepest parts of the earth? And what might it remember in the darkness where time has no meaning? To understand the true mystery of the Ngogo Caverns, one must first appreciate their setting. Kibali National Park is known for its vibrant primate population, especially the unusually large chimpanzee group in the Ngogo region. Researchers from all over the world come to study these primates, but few ever wander far enough to find the dark, narrow trail that leads to the entrance of the caverns. This path, carpeted in fallen leaves and draped in silence, leads to an unassuming crevice between 2 mossy outcroppings. One could easily pass it by, dismissing it as just another shadowed hollow in the forest floor. But those who have entered describe a sensation unlike any other. The air grows cooler, unnaturally still. A weight presses on the chest, and it becomes clear. Something ancient is waiting. Whispers from the depths. The whispers have been described in countless ways. Some say they resemble hushed chants, like monks murmuring in a long-forgotten tongue. Others insist they sound mechanical, metallic clicks and pulses, repeating in rhythmic patterns too regular to be natural. But what strikes everyone is the consistency. Regardless of who listens or what equipment is used, the sounds are always present, low and pulsing, often accompanied by a deep humming vibration felt in the bones rather than heard. In 2012, a small team of researchers from Makerere University in Kampala ventured into the cavern to study the acoustic phenomenon. They brought seismic equipment, audio recorders, and even bioacoustic sensors typically used for tracking elephant communication. But as soon as they passed the first chamber, everything failed. The sensors, fresh with full battery, drained in minutes. Cameras glitched, and lights flickered despite being brand new. The team was forced to retreat, but not before recording a brief, haunting clip. Faint echoes like singing, layered with irregular clicking. To this day, no analysis has conclusively identified the source. Ancient markings and unusual rock formations. Just inside the mouth of the caverns, where the sunlight fades into soft twilight, explorers have found unusual markings on the walls. At first glance, they resemble primitive petroglyphs, perhaps left behind by early humans. But upon closer examination, they defy categorization. The symbols don't match Bantu, Nilotic, or any known script of ancient Africa. They spiral outward in concentric circles, many marked with geometric shapes, squares within circles, three-pointed stars, and intersecting curves. Some scholars have compared the forms to glyphs found in other distant cave systems, such as the Tam Khan cave system in Laos and the Hypogeum in Malta. But the most curious aspect is not the glyphs themselves, it's the stone. The walls of the caverns seem to shimmer faintly, even in near-total darkness. Geologists suspect a high concentration of mica and hematite, both known for reflective properties. But in some chambers, the glow continues without any light source, a faint blue radiance that hovers along the walls and vanishes when touched. This luminescence has never been reproduced or explained in laboratory settings. Eyewitness accounts and unsettling encounters. Some of the most compelling accounts come not from scientists, but from local guides and bushcraft experts. People who've spent decades in the forest and know its rhythms intimately. One such man, Okello, has guided researchers into the Kabali forests for over 30 years. When asked about the caverns, he grew quiet and distant, eventually saying, "The air there breathes back at you. You stand at the entrance and feel it watching. Not a place for men, that one." Another explorer, a German speleologist named Hannelore Schroeder, reportedly entered the caverns with a 3-person team in 1998. Her journal, later published after she disappeared during a solo expedition in 2001, recounts seeing shadowed figures that moved behind them. Her team chalked it up to exhaustion, until they all began hearing what they described as laughter, soft and feminine, echoing from the darkness. They pressed deeper into the system until they found a small chamber with what looked like 3 stone platforms, arranged like altars. Each was covered in dark red stains that had not faded. The smell, she wrote, was metallic. They left without taking samples. Hannellore's notes include a sketch of the central chamber. Beneath it, she wrote, "We were not the first, and we are not alone. Indigenous lore, the guardians below." The local tribes are careful with their words. To them, the caverns are sacred and dangerous. One legend tells of a time long ago when beings from beneath the earth walked among the people. They were not gods, but caretakers of a hidden world. When the surface became too noisy, too bright, they withdrew into the caverns, sealing themselves in with spells sung into stone. Occasionally, the tribes say the whispers grow louder. This is a warning. The caretakers are restless. They speak to remind the living not to forget, not to disturb. Next, the Mbambo Vault, a forbidden structure beneath the earth. A discovery that was never meant to happen. In 2017, a remote seismic survey conducted near the Ituri forest in the northeastern Democratic Republic of Congo picked up something unusual. What began as routine research into tectonic activity became the catalyst for one of the most perplexing underground discoveries in modern African history. Beneath layers of dense jungle, red clay, and fractured basalt, The instruments detected an unusual geometric anomaly. Not natural, not fluid, but sharply defined, as if someone or something had carved it directly into the Earth's crust. Initial data showed a perfectly rectangular void approximately 60 meters wide, with 3 connected passageways leading deeper still. Locals had long referred to the land above it as Ikumba Yimbambo, the resting place of Mbambo, a name rarely spoken aloud. To them, it was not a landmark but a boundary, a place marked not by terrain, but by memory, passed down through oral tradition for countless generations. And all traditions agreed, this place must not be opened. Who or what was Mbambo? In traditional Bantu cosmology, Mbambo, or Bumba, is often viewed as a creator god. According to the myth, Mbambo vomited the sun, the moon, and all the creatures of the world. But in some lesser-known versions of the tale, versions shared in whispers rather than songs, Mbambo did not create the world but rather sealed it shut. These variants suggest Mbambo was not a bringer of life but a warden. He was tasked with containing ancient forces buried beneath the land, remnants of a time when Earth was not meant for humans. The vault was not a tomb, but a lock, the forbidden structure beneath the forest, now dubbed the Mbambo Vault by modern researchers, may be more than myth. It may be real. In late 2018, a privately funded research group operating under the banner of an archaeological institute, whose full name remains unpublished, dispatched a small, elite team into the region. They brought drilling equipment, ground-penetrating radar, and even military-trained logistics officers. Within days, they had uncovered a section of stone-like material, unlike any rock found in the region. It was dark, almost obsidian-like, but warm to the touch. Strangest of all, it vibrated, not in response to contact, but continuously, as if humming a low frequency that could not be heard, only felt. With painstaking effort, they broke through an upper segment and entered the void. What they found was not an empty cavern. It was a room, inside the Mbambo Vault. The interior was unlike anything ever documented in sub-Saharan archaeology. Smooth, vaulted ceilings rose into darkness. The walls were engraved with thousands of symbols, none resembling Bantu, Arabic, Latin, or any recorded writing system. These symbols seemed to change appearance when viewed from different angles. Some described them as flowing, like living script. In the center of the chamber stood 3 pedestal-like structures, each identical in size and orientation, each covered in a thick, dustless black material that absorbed light. At the back of the room, partially obscured by a collapsed slab, was a circular door, featureless but sealed shut. Attempts to pry it open failed completely. Instruments couldn't penetrate it. One researcher reportedly stated, "It's not metal, it's not stone, and it's not man-made, but it is made." Their reports became frantic. One audio log, leaked by a whistleblower later that year, included a phrase that still haunts researchers. "We thought we were the ones opening the vault, but it was waiting for someone." Strange effects on the team. After the initial discovery, strange symptoms began affecting those who had entered the vault. Sleep disturbances, vivid hallucinations, an inability to tolerate bright light. One team member described hearing tones that no one else could detect, tones that changed with emotion or movement. Another wrote in a final note before vanishing, "There's something intelligent down there, not alive, not dead, watching, listening. It knows we are here." For members of the original team reportedly went missing in the months that followed. Others refused to speak on record, citing non-disclosure agreements and fear for their lives. The project was abruptly shut down. Scientific silence and sudden denials. To date, no official academic institution has acknowledged the vault's existence. Requests for satellite imagery of the coordinates where it was discovered are met with blurred terrain. The seismic data that started the project was quietly withdrawn from public access databases in 2019. It's almost as if the Mbambo Vault was erased. But evidence lingers. Locals still report distant thunder from beneath the forest floor, strange lights appearing at night, even livestock reportedly vanishing near the dig site. Indigenous elders refuse to go near the location, Some have called for it to be resealed, buried, forgotten. And yet the memory remains. What was it? What is it still? Theories range from the plausible to the extraordinary. A lost civilization. Some suggest it may be remnants of a forgotten prehistoric culture far older than known African civilizations. One with knowledge of materials and engineering far beyond what should have existed. Extraterrestrial. Others lean into the alien hypothesis, citing the impossible construction, radiation anomalies, and disturbing effects on human psychology. Interdimensional seal. A more esoteric theory posits the vault is a kind of dimensional anchor, not built to hold something physical, but something conceptual, an ancient idea or consciousness that can only be contained through space and geometry. Next, the crooked river of fire, a living current beneath the Congo. Deep within the central Congo basin, there is a phenomenon both terrifying and majestic. A river of heat and motion that slithers silently beneath the earth, untouched by daylight, unseen by most, and unaccounted for by science. This is the story of the crooked river of fire, a subterranean current of molten force, pulsing with life and defying every natural law we know. It begins with a hum. The first recorded encounter with the phenomenon came not from scientists, but from the Akanda people, whose villages brushed the periphery of the Lakula swamps. For generations, their elders spoke of the Nzala Yamotima, translated loosely as the hunger of the earth's heart. They described nights when the ground would hum like a drum, when the air grew unnaturally warm, and when birds stopped singing all at once. Animals would flee the forest in waves, as if something immense and invisible had awakened beneath them. To them, it wasn't myth. It was a warning, the heat that shouldn't exist. In 2013, a European geothermal expedition was launched to study anomalous surface temperatures in the Congo basin. Satellite readings had shown strange linear hot zones, narrow bands of ground that glowed faintly in infrared scans. But there were no volcanoes, no tectonic faults, no geothermal vents. The team expected some form of trapped methane or perhaps decomposing organic material beneath the surface. What they found instead was a moving column of heat, kilometers long, tracing a jagged, snaking route beneath the forest. An underground river of 1,200 degrees Celsius temperatures flowing horizontally across otherwise stable terrain. Their thermal instruments captured a pulse, an irregular but rhythmic fluctuation in temperature, almost like a heartbeat. It wasn't just moving, it was alive, a river unlike any other. Local guides refused to go near the hottest zones. Some said the area was poisoned with fire. Others warned of screams that rose from deep below when one stood still long enough. Geophysicists began mapping the phenomenon and noted something strange. The underground current did not behave like lava or magma. It moved too fast. It changed direction in response to rainfall and even lunar cycles. It bypassed geological constraints, flowing through solid rock where it should have been stopped. The river's path was inconsistent with every known natural formation. When pressure sensor cables were lowered into a borehole near one of the flow's hotspots, the data revealed something chilling. At roughly 9,800 feet deep, the instruments stopped transmitting. Not cut, not destroyed, silenced, as if entering an electromagnetic dead zone. Ancient carvings and warnings. Even more mysterious were the ancient petroglyphs discovered on basalt outcrops several kilometers from one of the flow's main thermal points. The carvings showed a serpentine form, coiled beneath a grid of trees, marked by spirals and burning suns. Some figures appeared to be kneeling or hiding, while others held hands toward the earth in fear or reverence. A recurring symbol, seen in all the sites, a spiral pierced by a line, believed to be a depiction of the crooked river itself, cutting through the core of the earth. One translation by a Congolese anthropologist suggested the phrase, "Beneath the jungle's breath lies the path of flame. Wake it not, lest the sky forget how to rain." Reports of the unseen. Since the 1990s, bush pilots have occasionally reported strange weather patterns. Columns of warm mist rising in the night, glowing with faint bioluminescence. No source was found. Satellite anomalies, too, appeared in patterns along the suspected path of the crooked river. Clouds forming in spirals, ground temperatures peaking for mere minutes, then returning to normal. Most unsettling, however, are the stories told by those who dared explore the caves above the heat flow. One group of spelunkers reported metallic sounds, grinding, rhythmic, as if something beneath the ground was churning. Another claimed their compass spun violently before dying completely. The third expedition described the walls dripping with condensation, despite no water source being present, and a faint, almost mechanical whispering when they stood in silence. The river responds. In early 2020, seismic activity near the region showed signs of minor ground shifts along the crooked path. Oddly, these movements occurred not during heavy rainfall or dry seasons, but in moments of silence, when no animal stirred, no wind blew, no human footstep touched the soil. Some researchers theorize that the river responds to observation, that it moves most when no one is watching. A chilling hypothesis emerged. What if this subterranean force is not simply geothermal but something aware? Not in the way animals are, but in the way systems evolve. Conscious like a circuit, predictive like a storm, a living current with rules and intentions we cannot yet grasp. What science can't explain. Attempts to drill closer to the flow have all failed. Either equipment breaks, or data becomes corrupted. Instruments freeze. Batteries drain. One team swore they heard chanting, though no source could be found. Others claimed they saw shadow-like forms flicker in the darkness. Is it geological? Biological? Something entirely new? Some suggest it's a mantle plume anomaly, a misfiring volcanic channel trapped beneath a stable crust. Others whisper of earthbound energy, perhaps even primordial consciousness left over from Earth's formation. A slumbering intelligence that pulses just below our feet. But every explanation collapses in the face of the same truth. This river moves, it waits, and it watches, if something ancient and fiery winds through the deepest places of the earth. Next, the hollow giant of Billy footprints that shouldn't exist. In the tangled wilderness of northeastern Congo, in a region rarely touched by modern civilization, lies Billy, an expanse of forest so dense, it swallows sound and confounds satellites. But it is not just the thickness of its trees that has drawn scientists, explorers, and cryptozoologists alike. The locals speak. To the local Mbol people, the tracks were nothing new. They spoke of the Nzubu Yabili, or the hollow giant, a being said to walk at dusk, unseen but heard, branches cracking beneath its steps, a faint growl accompanying its passage. Descriptions varied. Some claimed it was covered in pale moss, like living stone. Others said it had skin like bark, rough and cracked. A few whispered that it was not an animal at all, but a memory, a thing that came and went with the mist. No one dared follow it. No one claimed to have seen it face to face. And yet, everyone believed it was real. Trail of the impossible. In 2006, a joint expedition of primatologists and cryptozoologists mapped a trail of 37 consecutive prints across a stretch of undisturbed forest floor. The prints were fresh, untouched by erosion or weather. The creature, whatever it was, had passed through only hours earlier. Trail cams were set up, infrared sensors placed. Night passed. In the morning, the cameras remained intact. The trail continued. No footage, no alarm, no sighting. And yet, the prints had moved past the equipment, as if slipping around detection. One researcher described it as a kind of negative presence, something that left a mark without ever being seen. The sound in the canopy. As part of their follow-up, audio equipment was installed high in the trees. While most of the recordings were filled with typical jungle ambience, on 3 separate occasions, the microphones picked up a low-frequency hum, sustained for several seconds, or a pulsed vibration, rhythmic and deep, what some described as a distant groan, almost metallic. Spectral analysis revealed frequencies below the range of typical animal calls, more similar to seismic shifts than biological vocalizations. Spectral analysis revealed frequencies below the range of typical animal calls, more similar to seismic shifts than biological vocalizations. But they didn't originate underground. They came from the canopy, as if something massive was moving above, despite no branches breaking, no foliage shifting. Artifacts in the shadow. In 2012, a Congolese archaeologist uncovered stone tools deep in the Billy Forest, too large to be comfortably used by human hands. They resembled hand axes and scrapers, but each weighed over 15 pounds, with grips suited for fingers twice the size of ours. Nearby were fragments of a structure. Stacked stones, not natural, but arranged in deliberate concentric rings, long overgrown. Carbon dating failed, no organic material survived on their surfaces. But beneath the stone floor was found a single vertebra, fossilized and enormous. Preliminary analysis suggested a hominid origin, but orders of magnitude larger than Homo sapiens. The bones were sent for study. They were lost in transit. No official report was ever published. Science stays silent. As of today, no official scientific explanation has been accepted for the Billy footprints. Some suggest an unknown great ape, perhaps an isolated relic from an earlier era, Gigantopithecus, once thought extinct, surviving in secret. Others propose a primate-human hybrid, a divergence long hidden in isolated pockets of the forest. But increasingly, even these ideas feel too grounded. The phenomena associated with the hollow giant seem to straddle the edge between biological and metaphysical. A creature that leaves marks and makes sounds, but resists capture or evidence. It is as if the forest itself protects it, swallows it, cloaks its presence in shadow and leaf. Could the hollow giant be real? Or is it something else entirely? A manifestation of ancient memory, a remnant of Earth's subconscious? Perhaps it is not a creature of flesh, but of time. A spectral echo of something that once roamed, now flickering into existence only when no one is watching. In Billy, where the trees grow too close to let the sky in, where the ground remembers things the mind has long forgotten, anything seems possible. And if the hollow giant still walks, its prints pressing quietly into the mud, it does so on its own terms, unseen, unheard, unexplained. Next, the forbidden vaults of Mount Nabemba whispers from below. Deep in the Republic of the Congo rises a mountain few outsiders ever speak of Mount Nabemba. But their private notes, leaked years later, tell of a corridor made of basalt, perfectly smooth, curving gently downward with no tool marks, only etched symbols faded and worn, unlike any known language. The sealed chambers. Over the next decade, whispers of sealed chambers beneath Mount Nabemba began surfacing in obscure academic journals and explorers' memoirs. One chamber was said to contain 6 stone thrones, each facing an empty circular pit. Another contained gigantic humanoid carvings, their features worn down, but their hands depicted with 6 fingers. In one chamber, tools were found, metallic but light as bamboo, refusing to rust and humming faintly when touched. The most chilling account comes from a Congolese botanist, who, during an environmental study in 2005, was led by a local guide to a carved doorway, half covered in vines. The doorway, embedded in a cliff face, had no handle, no hinge, just a spiral insignia at its center. When the botanist touched it, he claimed to hear a low tone, like a bell echoing from within the stone. The guide refused to go closer, whispering that it was a place where the breath of the world gets trapped. The unspoken warnings. Among the local Sunga people, Mount Nabemba is considered sacred and dangerous. Tribal elders forbid young men from climbing it and caution that the mountain is asleep, not dead. They speak of a blue light seen circling the peak during storms, a hum in the ground when the moon is full, a sudden loss of time, travelers who believe they've been gone minutes, only to return days later. And most notably, they warn of the vault keepers. Not people, not spirits, but shadows that move in the tunnels, sometimes felt, rarely seen. Their presence is accompanied by whispers in forgotten dialects, often just behind one's ear, always vanishing when confronted. Magnetic anomalies and seismic oddities. In 2011, a team of international geophysicists conducted magnetic surveys of the region, including Mount Nabemba. Their equipment reportedly malfunctioned near the peak. Compasses spun, GPS signals dropped, and magnetometers recorded bizarre fluctuations that could not be explained by natural magnetic rock formations. Even more strangely, Minor seismic tremors were detected at the site in intervals of exactly 88 minutes, lasting for mere seconds each time. This pattern repeated for 2 weeks, then ceased without cause. Some speculated that beneath the mountain was not a natural cavern system, but a machine or something behaving like one. Something not sleeping but waiting. Symbols that shouldn't exist. In a partially explored side tunnel, an expedition in 2013 found a large wall etched with symbols that resembled cuneiform, indescript, and Dogon star maps, but hybridized. They appeared carved with precision tools, not chisels. Despite linguistic analysis, the symbols do not match any known system. What makes this more mysterious is that fragments of similar symbols have been found as far apart as the Yonaguni Monument in Japan, the Tartaria tablets in Romania, and the Nazca lines in Peru. Could these vaults be a remnant of a global prehistoric culture, one so advanced, its symbols and architecture defy our modern timelines? Or is it possible the vaults were not made by humans at all? Echoes of a non-human past. In 2020, deep scans of the mountain using ground-penetrating radar reportedly revealed voids hundreds of meters beneath the surface. These were not random gaps, but symmetrical rooms, some over 80 meters long, connected by perfectly straight corridors. Unofficial reports leaked by a Congolese military engineer claimed one chamber might house a sarcophagus-like structure, over 20 feet long, surrounded by metallic obelisks. But the real anomaly? That chamber reportedly emits a low vibration, measurable even from the surface, peaking precisely at 3:33 a.m. local time, regardless of day or season. To this day, no official expedition has returned to verify the claim. What is Mount Nabemba hiding? Despite all this, no academic body has officially studied the vaults beneath Mount Nabemba. Locals refuse to guide outsiders beyond a certain perimeter. Equipment fails. Maps fade. Even satellite imagery has been blurred or corrupted in several high-resolution maps. What began as a search for minerals has become something far more unnerving. What lies buried beneath Mount Nabemba may predate humanity. It may not be of Earth origin. Or perhaps it is a library of forgotten knowledge, locked away, left undisturbed, and intentionally concealed from modern understanding. It raises questions that science dares not ask. Who carved those tunnels? Why do the vibrations mimic machines? And what lies in that sarcophagus, humming beneath the earth, pulsing with unnatural regularity? Final thoughts. The jungles of the Congo hold many mysteries, but Mount Nabemba may be the crown jewel of the unexplained. A silent guardian of secrets left by hands not quite human. It stands watch in the mist, still, quiet, waiting, and maybe listening.